The black letters of the law have, no matter how beautiful the black letters of the law are, it is irrelevant if the implementation tools are not made enforceable in the community so that the lived realities of people are impacted by some of these laws. The government can make beautiful laws. If there is no willingness by CSOs to also work with government to ensure that the availability of these laws is made known to communities, then it will just become a beautiful paper staying on a shelf somewhere.
There's also the gap in enforcement. What do you make of the gap in enforcement, especially in the countries that you've probably conducted research in?
So you could do research. If you're an academia, you could do research. But if it is not backed by policy, which to my mind, I believe are levers for development, because I feel when there are policies that are now, you provide, in law we say you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. How many governments are even equipped right now? The African Union does not even have a single.
Welcome to InfoCheck. Today we look at laws governing and shaping information governance in West Africa, from outdated laws to weak enforcement and rising security restrictions. And discussing this with us today is a lawyer and human rights and policy expert, Dr. Gbam. Dr. Gbam, welcome to InfoCheck.
Thank you, Francis. It's a pleasure to be here with you to discuss some of the issues that are affecting the information sector across West Africa.
So let's get a bit historical. Let's look at, there are a lot of outdated laws in West Africa. One could say relics of colonial rule, those laws. What do you think are the risks of misuse with these old communication laws still invoked in Africa?
And I'm so glad you use the word colonialism, because that's the bedrock of most of the legal systems and regime across the continent. Of course, we have the Francophone with the French impact, and we have the Anglophone with British colonial rule, which of course Nigeria, Ghana, and other countries in English-speaking Africa, West Africa, are part of. And then you have the case of Senegal, Burkina, Côte d'Ivoire, and a host of other countries within the Francophone Africa where French colonial laws are some of the benchmarks upon which the legal systems were based. And I know that there is an amendment to a lot of the laws to reflect the realities that are happening. But the extent to which some of these developments are happening still leaves a lot to be desired. But at least we are trying our best to gradually do the best that we can. And I think that's why I'm really excited about the work that I get to do every day to promote legal frameworks across the West African region, whether it is ensuring that cybercrime legislations meets the required protection benchmarks, or ensuring that there are guardrails to ensure data protection and information integrity across the continent here. So all of these laws are gradually coming up to ensure that we meet the legal responsibilities of the region.
Now, you talked about, data laws, especially a lot of things in that area, but there's also the gap in enforcement. What do you make of the gap in enforcement, especially in the countries that you've probably conducted research in? How do you see this gap in enforcement? Of course, as much as we say there are old colonial laws that are still being used in these countries, there are also very good laws that have been passed by the national assemblies of these countries, but we see a huge gap in terms of implementation. What are these gaps that you have seen in the countries where you have conducted research in, for example?
I think I could write a whole thesis, and a lot of people have already researched about implementation gaps, which has always been the issue with the legal system, not just in West Africa, but on the continent broadly of Africa. I know that the black letters of the law have, no matter how beautiful the black letters of the law are, it is irrelevant if the implementation tools are not made enforceable in the community so that the lived realities of people are impacted by some of these laws. So I feel that the issue of bridging the gap between theory and practice of laws to bring the meaning of the law to the ordinary person goes beyond maybe just the rhetoric of saying, let us engage or let us ensure that there's implementation. what I would say is that this is a multi-stakeholder approach, one that goes beyond looking at one specific actor. The government can make beautiful laws. If there is no willingness by CSOs to also work with government to ensure that the availability of these laws is made known to communities, then it will just become a beautiful paper staying on a shelf somewhere. Now, apart from the CSOs, there is also the responsibility of citizens within the country to work with government and ensure that we proactively engage with government processes. And this engagement will go beyond merely the awareness of an existing legal framework. It will go to holding government accountability, engaging in government processes and ensuring that when there are public calls for maybe opinions or inputs to particular issues, we respond to some of these issues and work together with our government. Because at the end of the day, when you look at it, the government is the people. It is not necessarily about, a structure. It is the people who make up the government. And so CSOs, individuals, governments, companies, everyone all collectively working together. I think that is the only way that we can ensure the implementation gap, that there is that, the bridge between theory and practice is implemented. And I think maybe I'll just give an example of, I always come back to the laws that I am, familiar with, which I would maybe say, for instance, the cybercrime legislation is now being, adopted in a particular country. And we can use Nigeria, for instance, as a case in point to say, when the Nigerian cybercrime law was done, a lot of actors came together to say, beyond just civil society, to say, maybe, for instance, Section 24 is not, does not have the protection, safeguards or guardrails to ensure that people are not arbitrarily arrested or police does not go and abuse the powers that are under that section. So I feel that it is by CSOs, but also governments and individuals being aware of what is happening in communities that we can translate these promises, that these beautiful laws that we are trying to now reimagine for the continent into, realities on ground that benefits the common person.
Now, talking about beautiful laws, there are other parts of West Africa, especially the Central Sahel, where some people would say probably the laws there are not so beautiful.
Absolutely.
Why do I say so? We have a situation where, for example, the Pen Plus Bytes Disinformation Index report, which was carried out in Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire, Mali, and Burkina Faso. There's a pattern from that report about Mali and Burkina Faso, which shows that government is using security laws to control information dissemination. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the risk of, for example, human rights abuses when you are using military law and security laws to police information dissemination?
I will say that the person who was speaking, that's the optimist me, who believes at the core that I'm a Pan-African and I believe in Africa and working for the continent. But also I know that there is a lot of work that we have to do to ensure that our legal frameworks really live up to expectations. And I know that beyond even the Sahel, there are so many laws even within other countries that require. Recently, we were working with the Gambia to modify some of the sections of the Cybercrime Convention. I think I want to maybe just say that it was commendable that the drafters of the law listened to some of the issues that we raised, and they had gone back to now take a look at all those sections that we highlighted as
was this like a sort of
problematic.
peer review thing? Or
It was a legal analysis. So when the law was done, Article 19 did a legal analysis to say, these are some of the sections that we feel are, maybe there were sections that had responsibility that would go beyond maybe responsibility to individuals who were even working. I think there was a section, I can't remember the exact section of that law that said, if you, for instance, who is working in a radio station and there was a production in your, on your station, you would be held responsible and not the organization as a whole. And those are some of the laws that to us feel like they're stifling dissent, and we try to, look at some of those sections and advise the government to say, these are some of the sections that we think are not, are further promoting the silencing of dissenting voices. And so I think that in as much as we are trying our best, and I know the AU and even the ECOWAS is trying, but there's so much that still leaves a lot to be desired. I know that right now there is a wave of movement about safety and data protection, number one, but also protecting women online. I mean, we saw the case in Mali of the TikToker who was killed for, sharing views online. Those are some of the issues that they have to be those safeguards and protection, mechanisms that can protect the diverse group of people across the continent. And there's still so much work that needs to be done. But I try my best to be as optimistic as possible to see the little positives that we're trying to do.
What do you see in terms of safeguards being put up by tech companies, big tech like TikTok, to protect women, to protect young girls online?
I know that, if you were in the panel, you heard how TikTok said they had safety features. And each platform has those safety features that they have set up to protect people online. But my problem usually is the accessibility of those safety features to the common person. I know of this because I'm working in the space. A lot of people who use these platforms are not aware of some of these issues. And that's why when we encourage that policies should go beyond being in English, French, or the major languages, but also bring in local languages. And if you're doing campaigns should go beyond of maybe accessibility of safety features, should go beyond what is are the major colonial languages, but bring in African languages that now integrates, that meet people exactly where they are. Because I think today we learned about the parental control features, which is something that a lot of platforms now have. But I feel parental control, while good in and of itself, does not protect maybe younger people who are not necessarily looking up to their parents. So I feel like the oversight function should go beyond maybe expecting that there has to be an adult control. It should be sort of default, safety by default, by design, to say, look, this is the feature. And that was why I was suggesting things like you have maybe a prompt to say, you've been on this app for a very long time. You should take a break. That's a suggestion. Someone can go ahead to say, and I would say that if you have such prompts, maybe 2 or 3 times to say, and someone disregards it, at least you are in the know that I tried to warn you that the content you are consuming now is going beyond what is, what is expected of you to consume. Or you could have another prompt, like I said earlier, about ensuring that maybe you are researching on a particular topic and you digress and the algorithm is now suggesting other topics to you. You prompt someone to say, you are moving away from the initial topics that you were researching. Would you want to continue down this route or go back to what you were researching? I feel like those little additional safety features can go a long way to bringing people back on track and ensuring that safety goes beyond just saying we have policies, go search at the back end of our app, go down before you understand this. Safety should be by default, where right on the app, it is already there telling you these are some of the issues you encounter and this is how you protect yourself, and not something that you have to research or need an expert opinion for you to be able to find.
So that means there has to be some kind of change in the UI and UX aspect of this big tech companies.
Absolutely.
Now, going back to the issue of misinformation and disinformation, now I would say you work at the intersection of human rights, civil society, and the law, right? So this makes you the perfect person to answer this particular question, which is, according to you, how do these components come together to provide a holistic framework to govern the combating of misinformation and disinformation in Africa? Because on one hand, it looks like there is a whole lot of working together, but on the other hand, it looks like everybody is doing their own little thing on the corner and it's not really together?
I think when we speak about collaboration, to my mind, I don't think it's just a buzzword. It is important that we collaborate across board, because if we leave responsibility of, for instance, regulation, and I know in regulation there are issues to say self-regulates, technologies should self-regulate, and there are others who are calling for co-regulation between government and tech companies alike, and even civil society coming together. I feel the responsibilities to promote information integrity on the continent goes beyond just a single actor. It is something that we need to come together to do. And I know recently we were, at least colleagues were in prayer, but we also had engagements online about promoting information integrity in West Africa in partnership with UNESCO. And that meeting brought together actors from government, civil society, academia, all of us together. So you could do research. If you're an academia, you could do research. But if it is not backed by policy, which to my mind, I believe are levers for development, because I feel when there are policies that are now, you provide, in law we say you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. When there is a policy and a framework, it gives room for action based on that to ensure now that maybe there is a change of protection or a protection mechanism to ensure that information is protected. I mean, we can see what is happening across the region with the level of misinformation and with the rise of AI and deep fake and a lot of people using it without caution. How do you as one individual try to regulate all of that? So much is developing rapidly, and every day you see a new tool is coming up. Tech companies are deploying whatever new tool that they want because to them it's just about profit. How many governments are even equipped right now? The African Union does not even have a single. I know recently there was a new resolution on information integrity, but right now, regulating of platforms on the continent needs to go beyond all of that. There needs to be that collective action. And that's why maybe events like today, you would say, are sort of trying to create an avenue for something like that. But to what extent?
And finally, what is the future of this collaboration for you? How do you see the future of collaboration between CSOs, human rights activists, the judicial system, the government, and all that, especially in the fight against disinformation?
Like I told you, I'm an optimist. I try to see the beauty that we say Africa is the future. I think we should stop seeing the future. Since I was young, we've been talking of Africa as the future. So maybe we must start living the talk right now and doing the talk now. A lot of work still needs to be done. This is not something we can achieve in a day. And as technology continues to evolve and develop, we are introduced to new challenges. So I think that at the end of the day, and maybe if I would say that, or advise, or suggest, would be that it's not going to be an easy road. It will require a lot of deliberate action across board to ensure that we go beyond just maybe publishing policy papers, but also getting the work to ensure that, look at the work that fact checkers do. That's something that we have to really work to ensure that people who fact check information are empowered to continue to do the kind of work that they do. And a lot of these people within communities are people with very little resources. If we leave them to run the work, they may not be able to do. That's where it's now important for maybe civil societies who have the might to galvanize these resources necessary for all of that. So when you go, it's such a huge task. But I think that when we continue with little deliberate efforts of working together, hopefully, maybe, I don't know when, we may be able to address some of the challenges as they come. But yeah, all I'm trying to say is there's no real right or wrong answer in this one, but I'm trying to remain quite optimistic about it all.
Dr. Janet Gbam, thank you for coming on InfoCheck.
My pleasure.
And that's the size of the package this week on InfoCheck. Join us next time as we continue to dive deeper into Pen Plus Byte Disinformation Index in West Africa. Don't forget, stay critical.